Hey you guys, I'm Taylor. Thanks for tuning in today and for watching my video. I am a US American that's been living and working in Germany these past few years, and I try to keep this channel mostly light. We talk about some interesting things about Germany, but I really also want to talk about serious topics. You'd have to be living under a rock to see what's happening in the United States right now. No, I'm not talking about COVID-19. I'm talking about police brutality, the racism within the institutions in the US, and the protests that have resulted from that racism. I've already made a video where I've kind of discussed what was happening, a little bit about racism and the difference between the United States and Germany. That was quite an emotional video. I wasn't as prepared as I am for the video today. And today I want to talk more about specifically the criminal justice system. I have felt these last few weeks this feeling, this call to action, and I feel a lot of shame that I haven't felt this call to action in the same way before. I've never been someone that's not been vocal, but I haven't been as vocal as I should have been, and I haven't taken the time like I should have to really deconstruct my own racist beliefs and ideas. And I haven't been as vocal of an ally within my own community as I should have been before. If you stay tuned to the end of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I'm personally doing, what other people can do, and I'll give some really great resources. In this video specifically, again, we're talking about the criminal justice system. I'm going to be talking about really two main sections. I'm going to start out by talking about the police. And again, I'm going to be comparing the United States to Germany, like I have in all of my videos. I'm going to discuss things such as racial profiling, police brutality, and things like that. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk about the courts and the prison system. So again, comparing between the United States and Germany, and we'll touch upon a lot of different topics. I have a feeling this is going to be quite a long video. I hope that you will stay for the duration of it because it's a very, very important topic. Again, I like to always preface my videos by stating that I am not an expert. I am also a white person that doesn't have a lot of experience with racism, and the experience I have had as an Asian American is limited. You know, it's nothing in comparison to what African Americans in the United States or refugees in Germany have to encounter on a daily basis. So I don't want my voice to drown out the voices of people that have experienced these things. And I'll also be linking below some of the really great people that are talking about these issues that have experienced it themselves, because I think that these narrative examples are so important. And like I said, I want to, as a white person, start a dialogue, because in the end, racism is our fault, you know? And because it's our fault, we have a certain duty to combat it also in public spheres like this. But like I said, I also want to recommend that you go and look at other resources from experts or people that have experienced racism firsthand, because those sources are so, so important. Before I begin, I just want to really implore you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. It's really important to me. It shows that people like my content, and I hope that you guys also learn something from my channel. All right. I don't know if you guys know this, but whenever I start a video, maybe a little bit behind the scenes, I have like pages and pages of notes of things that I want to say and statistics and the sources that I got everything from. But yeah, I want to start talking about the police. There are a multitude of differences between the police in the United States and the police in Germany. I just want to start out by talking about the role of police in these two different communities or societies. In the United States, there has been a long history of defunding public programs, a long history of defunding access to healthcare, of access to education, of social housing. There has been defunding of mental health services as well. And because of this defunding, there have been a lot of issues that have been handed over to police that aren't properly trained in handling these things. And I think it's a real shame, and this is in the US that I'm talking about, and it's something that I think Germany has done a better job at combating. I think that Germany does a very good job of funding these social programs and these public programs, because when you provide equal access to these kinds of things like education and healthcare, which I've talked about in other videos, you are able to lift people out of poverty. And there are so many statistics that talk about how poverty and crime are directly linked. There is no one race that commits more crime than the other, that is intrinsically more bad than another group. It just doesn't exist. So really what we should be focusing on is how can we reduce poverty? How can we alleviate poverty for minority groups? And that's a very big difference between the United States and Germany. I don't really feel like the United States cares about poor people, and they are just trying to incarcerate as many people of color as possible. I think that's really what's going on.
Hi everyone, Future Taylor here. I forgot to mention a few really important things that I wanted to touch upon. First of all, that there is a much higher police presence in communities of color, and the more police presence there are, the more interactions with police, the more crimes will actually be found to have been committed. So that's an important point to make. And also, as you can see in this graph from research done by the Brookings Institution, you can see that in some cases, whites are just as likely or more likely to have committed certain crimes, such as possession or use of drugs. And in this case, you can see that blacks, even though use drugs at a similar level to whites, are 6.5 times more likely than whites to be incarcerated for drug-related crimes. If that doesn't say something, I don't know what else will. Back to your regular scheduled programming.
So, with that being said, fundamental differences in police systems. What are their roles? I said that the role in the United States is a lot more broadened because they are dealing with people that have mental health issues, people that have drug issues, and they're putting them into the criminal justice system instead of really doing the preventative work that should be done. In terms of fundamental differences as well is just the kind of approach that police take to policing societies in Germany and the United States. In the US, you have a very hands-on approach. The police officers are very public and very present. This just means, for example, we had a police officer at my school that was very visible. We have police officers that are responsible for traffic violations. They sit for you, they wait for you, they have their radar guns out that clock your speed. If you forget to turn on your blinker, you roll through a stop sign, they're there to catch you. And in Germany, you have a much more, I would say, like laissez-faire approach to policing, in that police officers don't have as much of a presence, I feel like, in society. There are places where police officers are definitely more present. So if you have big events, you have your train stations where you'll typically have a few police officers walking through. So places with a lot of traffic, I would say, or places that are known to be areas where more crime takes place. But when it comes to traffic stops, for example, we have something called Blitzer, which I talked about in my Driving in Germany video. And those are pretty much just automatic stands that clock your speed and will take pictures of your license plate if you're speeding on a road. And you do have cop cars that drive around, but I've never actually seen them making traffic stops. And I think that the only reason I see cops driving around more frequently in the city that I live in is because we have the police training school for the entire region I live in. So that would maybe make sense that we have more police officers driving around. But I have never really had the feeling in Germany that I'm being watched and that the police officers are somehow hoping that I make a mistake so that they can somehow reap the benefit of catching someone doing something wrong, if that makes sense. And maybe I can just also tell a quick story. This video is going to be so long. Quick story. When I was 15 years old, I smoked a cigarette with a friend. I know smoking is bad. Don't do it. I don't smoke anymore. I mean, I never truly really smoked, but whatever. I smoked a cigarette with a friend, and two cops came up and they asked us for our age, and I told them I was 18, and they asked me for my birth date, and I couldn't do the math in my head, and they obviously knew I was lying. So instead of just taking my cigarettes away from me, I got arrested. You guys, like properly, like handcuffed, put into a cop car, taken to the police station, and my grandparents had to pick me up. And I mean, if their goal was to scare me straight, they did. I didn't smoke a cigarette again, but you have to think about the resources that were spent, the time that was spent going into putting me into the system for smoking a cigarette. I don't know, like those are my experiences with the US. I also had a cop pull me over for speeding, and he threatened to talk to my family about, like, it was just crazy. It was like emotional manipulation almost. So I would say that all of my experiences in the US with police are bad. I didn't look to them for really help, and I didn't see them as a form of security. Even though I'm not someone that typically breaks a lot of laws, I don't do anything super bad. I mean, I jaywalk occasionally on the street, but that being said, it's also nothing compared to what minorities feel in the United States, what Black people feel, what Middle Eastern people feel. It's nothing compared to that, what I have experienced. But I wanted to just kind of talk about my feelings and my experiences with police in both countries. Also, I have the feeling in Germany that police aren't really looking for very minor offenses. Another fundamental difference is the amount of training that police officers get and the quality of training. In the United States, the average training a police officer receives is 19 months. In Germany, in comparison, the average length of training is 36 months. So double the amount of training, if you think about it. That is incredible. It leaves much more time for learning techniques on de-escalation. It leaves more time for bias training. It leaves more time to learn from other people that are already working, learn from your superiors. And I think that's very valuable time. And I think that training in the United States for police officers should be taken much more seriously, and that the vetting process should be taken much more seriously. From my understanding, the process of becoming a police officer in Germany is much more selective. You undergo much more rigorous testing, psychological testing, physical testing, academic testing to become a police officer. And I know that the qualifications for entering police academies in the United States are much more lenient. So two other topics that I want to discuss, which are much more serious and kind of go hand in hand together, are racial profiling and police brutality. Racial profiling refers to law enforcement officials purposefully targeting people on suspicion of a crime based on their race, ethnicity, or religion. This is unfortunately a practice that is common in both the United States and in Germany. I think a lot of Germans look at the United States and think our system is so much better, and in a lot of ways it is, definitely, but there are still a lot of flaws within the system, and I think that racial profiling is definitely one of them. Technically, racial profiling in Germany is illegal. Of course, when it comes to intangible things such as one's own perceived biases, it's not as easy to regulate. And there are many complaints each year. There are many instances of racial profiling. In Germany, you also are able to stop and search someone in specific instances. So for example, a lot of it has to do with location. If you're in a location of public transportation, for example, an airport or a train station, if you're near to a border of a different country, or if you're in a place that's known that crimes are frequently committed, you are able to be randomly and arbitrarily stopped and searched and asked for your ID. Police officers can say that they saw something, they can say that they had a suspicion, but in the end, a lot of it is arbitrary and a lot of it is based on race and just skin color generally. A UN panel actually did an investigation in 2016, and they showed that in Germany, people of African descent were much more likely to be racially profiled in Germany. So I think that's something that's really important to know, and something that I think a lot of white Germans kind of cover their eyes about, and they don't necessarily take it seriously. In the United States, it's a huge issue. It's not just people that are Black, it's also anyone that has Latinx origin, anyone from South or Central America or is speaking Spanish even, they would be purposefully targeted by police officers and racially profiled. And racial profiling is based on negative stereotypes, and this has such harmful repercussions for minority communities. It really pushes them into the margins of society. And it's something that I think we should all be taking really seriously and being very vocal about, that it's just plain wrong. And then finally, I wanted to discuss police brutality. So I don't even know where to start with in the United States. I think that there's so much evidence and video footage out there that shows just how big of a problem this is in the United States. I think that police are not properly held accountable. And I would really implore you to go out and do your own research. And I think that it's very ironic that right now people are out on the streets protesting against racialized police brutality, and police officers are using excessive force in the form of tear gas and rubber bullets against the protesters that are protesting against police brutality. It makes no sense to me. And my hearts really go out to everyone right now that is being affected by this, all the protesters that were out there peacefully protesting and have endured this kind of violence. And it's really disgusting. And if you can show someone video evidence of police brutality and they still are not held accountable, you know that the system is failing. There's no other explanation, really. In terms of police brutality in Germany, I'm just going to say you don't hear about it very often. And if you look at the statistics, it's much less prevalent in Germany than it is in the United States, although it still is a problem. There are over 2,000 incidents of excessive police force that are filed every year. You do have an issue that I read about, that in some regions of Germany, police aren't necessarily required to carry around identification with them, which I think can be quite problematic and is a bit fragwürdig, a little bit ethically questionable. I also wanted to show this very stark contrast between Germany and the United States. And it's something that we have better data on. It's police killings of civilians. So I need to look at my data. I don't want to get this wrong. In 2019, the statistic for the United States is that police killed 1,596 civilians. That is 46.6 per 10 million people. And the 2018 statistic, sorry, I don't have the 2019 for Germany, but the 2018 statistic is 11 civilians killed by police. That's 1.3 per 10 million. And if you don't see that insane contrast and think to yourself, there is a huge problem in the United States, then I don't know what is going on in your mind. This is just insane. And people can say, oh, but the United States has more guns per capita, blah, 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 blah. Then fix your gun problem. There are so many problems that need to be addressed, and just because there's one problem doesn't mean you can blame it on the other. Fix that too. Sorry, I'm getting angry. I'm angry at all of this, but there it is, police brutality. I think we should move on. This video is getting so long.
Hey you guys, Future Taylor here. So I'm sitting down, I'm editing the video, and I'm realizing that this video is just getting too long, and I know that YouTube subscribers typically don't have an incredibly long attention span, and this topic is really just too important to have people dropping off in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this video, and in the coming days I'll post the second part of the video where I'll cover the court system, the prison system, and exactly what I'm doing to better myself, to really deconstruct my own personal biases and prejudices, and the things that I'm doing just to educate myself so I can be a better ally, a better advocate on behalf of the Black Lives Matters movement, on behalf of the minority communities, and what you can do. In the description below, you'll find other resources that you can look to for guidance. I hope that helps you. I'll also be posting the resources that I've used for this video. If you have personal experiences, if you have something to add, something constructive to add to this conversation, please leave a comment below. I read through them all. Other people are reading them. We can give each other hope. We can educate each other. And I really hope that you guys take that to heart. Okay, I will see you guys in a few days. Bye.